Community through business, building relationships, and building Waterloo Region. 570 News presents Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy, and we're approaching that time of year. It's the year-ender time when we look back on the year that was, and we're going to do that on today's show. I'm Glenn Pelletier. Great to have you with us. Joined, as I am always, by Greg Durocher, President and CEO of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, and Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. And gentlemen, it was a very, very busy year for business, both locally, nationally, and internationally. I don't know where you guys want to start because, I mean, there's so much to talk about.
Well, nobody likes time to go on, but you kind of looking forward to this year coming to an end because it's been so frigidly cold in the last few weeks. And I know Ian hasn't had the opportunity to experience all of it because he left us for a week or so and went to Hawaii. But
let me tell you, one of the Greater KW Chamber's new mandates is to annex Maui, Hawaii, as part of the municipality.
Speaking of that Hawaii trip, what was your ratio of business to pleasure?
It was entirely pleasure. It was just a pure vacation.
That's not true because you were responding to emails.
I know. Well, I did have my a number of people say, "Why were you responding?"
And
to
I'm
emails
sure that was handled very graciously by your co-traveler.
Georgia was responding to her emails too.
Oh,
Two
was
A-type
she? Oh, wow.
personalities that really can't put it down.
Well, then it works.
But it's a beautiful, beautiful place, and we were very blessed. WestJet, who's a good business partner of the region, got us from Ontario all the way to Maui and back very safely.
Whoa, wait a minute. WestJet to Maui?
Yeah, well, WestJet goes, and we went from Toronto because we were in Toronto, but you can get to Maui from Waterloo Region International Airport. And you go from here to Calgary, and then Calgary to Maui, or
I didn't know
Vancouver.
there's a WestJet flight directly from Calgary to Maui.
Yes, there is.
So to take that to the local area and the business community, we've got some great partners in the region that are airlines that are flying out of our local airport.
And we had this year, speaking, I guess we talk about the things that happened in 2013. We had this little launch of the American Eagle flight to Chicago, and that has been slowly ramping up and building as a great way for the region to be able to access pretty much anywhere in the world. And we see those charts, and you can get to anywhere from Waterloo Region International Airport through Chicago. You go to Chicago and get anywhere in the states, certainly the southern states, western states, but you can get international as well. So
have you done that Chicago flight?
I have not.
Yes, I've done it a few times. Yes,
you're there in 90 minutes, and with the time change, you basically are there.
It's the same time.
It's the same time. You leave at 7:30 in the morning, and you get, or whenever. It leaves at
6:30 in the morning. You get there at 6:30 in the morning.
That's amazing.
It is, but it's a fantastic, and that speaks to the quality of these organizations that are here. They're really customer service oriented. I've talked to you about the tweeting when I get on a flight and they tweet right back, and like WestJet. I don't know whether you had the opportunity to see that video that WestJet's put out on what they did with a group of travelers from Toronto to Vancouver, where they asked them what they wanted for Christmas and all the kids, there. And then it was there at the end, just a remarkable story. But these are great Waterloo Region business partners that we have that are really trying to bring us together with the rest of the world as well on our mission statement with trying to.
And I think one of the things we've said, Bearskin has daily service to Ottawa, so a lot of people that intersect with the government go to Ottawa. But we are going to do this year. We've been talking about we're going to do it this year. We're going to find a time to take a small delegation from both our chambers to Chicago. Maybe have some meetings with the Chicago Board of Trade. But we want to really do a hands-on. Here's how a business traveler can use this service of American Eagle to Chicago and back to access that market, because it's obviously a huge city in the States. But for pleasure travel as well, saying, hey, you want to go down to Florida for the winter and you don't want to have to go through the nightmare that is Toronto Airport. You can fly out of here, go to Chicago, take that transfer down to the southern states or to the western states.
Chicago's not a bad place to go for the weekend either.
It's great. It's a great place to go.
It's great.
What does it mean from your perspective to have an international airport in our own backyard?
I think it's just critically important. Especially now that we look at we've got the North American Free Trade Agreement, the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement, but now we got the European Free Trade Agreement coming on, and that hub in Chicago, like if you're in Chicago, you can go anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
And, the connections like that are going to be critically important for us to work with our small and medium-sized businesses here to expand their relationships around the world. And I think we need more of it, but certainly we've got a great head start.
And for our businesses, I mean, we always talk, and I think part of this is we'll get to in a second is talking about what has happened in 2013. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of those stories like BlackBerry, like Free Trade, which started in 2013, but they're going to be moving forward. 2014 is going to be a big year as Free Trade, as it relates to Free Trade, for us to be talking to our members of saying, here's how to take advantage of not only that American market and things like being able to easily get there to a hub airport like Chicago, but to be able to get around the world when we start talking about the European Free Trade Agreement. Because the way that's really going to benefit Canada, we all know 98 or 99% of businesses are small business, and they're our members.
Absolutely.
And how we help them understand what the opportunities are to do business or partner or have joint ventures and open up that marketplace in not only the U.S. but now with Europe is hugely important. So having that infrastructure, and we've talked about this before, that like the international airport, the importance of the border crossing, and Detroit was just announced to finally get going to move goods and services back and forth. Those are big issues that are going to take they'll transition over from year to year.
Yep. No, it's going to be great.
All right, gentlemen. Lots to get to. Where do you want? Do you want to start? This is the year-end review show. I guess BlackBerry.
That's
really
that's got to be the biggest, certainly the biggest local story, but maybe even the biggest tech story of the year because they. For many years, they were under the microscope and criticized a little bit for not being able to get their new operating system and their new platform. And last February, they launched, very successful launch of BlackBerry 10 operating system and the new device, and then rapidly came out with accessory devices as well. That the keyboard, the QWERTY keyboard came back out with the Q10. And, they've there's no question about it. They're a company or an organization that got to almost probably a peak and then experienced some difficulties because I think that to some degree everybody would agree, and even they would agree, that they lost their focus and their direction. But certainly now, the last quarter of this year, we've certainly seen some stability coming out of BlackBerry, and they're really regaining their focus. And
I think that's one of the things. I mean, and even inside of 2013, because this is one of those stories that will play out in 2014. We'll know the success of the new management team and their new focus over the course of 2014 and 15. I mean, that will come to play. But one thing that shouldn't be lost is while the Z10 didn't have the traction that they wanted to kind of get back market share. The platform itself, the BlackBerry 10 platform,
the operating system,
is amazing, and it is being used. And now we see this with BBM being licensed to other users when you have the take your own device to work issue. That BlackBerry there's a place for BlackBerry, and I think what we've seen and what John Chen is talking about, the people that we talk to locally that are on the inside of BlackBerry are saying, the important part is that their sweet spot is, and they've said this is not me saying it, this is what they're going to focus on, is the corporate, the corporate user, the business application. And to me that's good news because, whether it's traveling to Hawaii and making and feeling like I'm still connected to work, not that I should have been necessarily, but it was very convenient. That's the only thing I took in my playbook, and it was, and you feel connected and you have everything that you need, and so that was a real success. I think the sales numbers were not there. I mean, that's why they've had their difficulties and are downsizing, and that's very difficult for the local market. Is that we're seeing hundreds and thousands, potentially thousands of jobs disappearing over the next year or so.
Gentlemen, I'm not going to say I'm surprised that the Z10 didn't take off. There are many reasons for it, and the Q10 for that matter. But I'm truly, from a personal standpoint, disappointed because I use a Q10, and this is a great product.
Oh, absolutely.
And for whatever reason, the world needs to know that. Or sorry, for whatever reason, the world has lost touch with what a great device the BlackBerry, the new 10 series that came out this year, is. The Q10 and the Z10. I want to scream and announce to the world, you know what? This is a great device.
Yeah. Well, I think
it really is sad.
Well, what you're going to find though is that I think they're really getting back down to their roots, and I think that's and this has happened. Apple's had this happen in the late 80s, early 90s, where they lost focus and then they were punished for it, and then they got real focused again. And I think what you're going to see is BlackBerry will become what it is.
You have to also remember that the consumer out there, wants rapid change and wants rapid upgrades to these things, and everybody knows that BlackBerry got behind and didn't. They struggled at getting their new operating system that was going to give them the flexibility to update and upgrade and do all these neat new things, and other manufacturers just came to the forefront with new and exciting opportunities. So once you do switch, it's very difficult to go back again.
All right, we're going to come back with more. Take a break and come back with more as Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy, continues on 570 News.
Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. You're listening to Business, powered by Save On Energy, featuring local businesses, solutions, and success stories, connecting community through business on 570 News.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy. Greg Durocher, Ian McLean, and myself, Glenn Pelletier. Looking back on 2013, the year that was in business. When we left, we were talking about BlackBerry. I mean, we could talk forever about this company. Are you optimistic about the company's future?
I am. I personally am. I think that what's to me is reassuring is whether it's in the same form as a company that probably is more of an open question. But I think the technology stands the test of time, and whether it's the QNX technology, which is now being used in cars and everything else, or the operating system, I think there's definitely a place for it because, as you say, it is a great device.
And I think their new leader that they brought in, John Chen, is going to be very interesting to see how he's got he's got absolutely an incredible background. Certainly understands where he's going and how to build an organization. So I think we're still seeing the migration of the company going from A to B, but I think once it gets settled in there, I think you're going to see some really good things.
Well, one of the things is, I mean, BlackBerry is a transition story. But you were just saying on the before we came on the air, we've had a lot of big stories with companies that people would like shop. What do you say, Loblaws
and Shoppers, like Galen Weston going out and buying Shoppers Drug Mart. That's unbelievable.
And the consolidation in that space, Sobeys and who?
Safeway.
Yep. Rogers, your parent company here, taking the.
That's kind of neat too, isn't it? Like, how long has Hockey Night in Canada been an institution on CBC?
You know what? It's going to continue to be. This is
absolutely.
I was talking to somebody about this in the wake of the announcement, and they were saying, "Oh, there's the end of an era." What's going to happen to Hockey Night in Canada? Well, Rogers has already said, and they're not going to
virtually nothing.
Nothing is going to change.
Yeah.
At this point, nothing has changed.
No.
Ostensibly, until they say we don't want Don Cherry around anymore, which I can't imagine them doing.
No.
It's going to air on CBC at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, as it has since 1952. Nothing's going to change except that Rogers has the rights to the broadcast.
Yeah,
They'd be foolish, I think, as a company, to screw with an institution, an iconic Canadian institution like Hockey Night in Canada, and I've heard nothing to suggest that they're not going to keep Don Cherry around. Why would they get rid of Don Cherry?
Well, that would be
the fallout. I think there'd be lots of fallout.
He's a guy that people love to hate and love to love. So he's
what's amazing about him too. Think about this: when you hear somebody's 80 years old, you think, oh, okay, you picture in your mind's eye. Don Cherry is going to be 80 next year.
I know.
Amazing.
I know.
But getting back to the deal, I mean, talk about eliminating your competition in a huge way.
Well, that's what we see is many of our members, I mean, doing it at the local level, are not are small independents. And when you start to see some of the consolidation of these bigger corporations, that's one of the things that we have to be conscious of, is how we support the small independent and the local business community when you have this consolidation. But it is a reality. I mean, this is what happens when you're competing in a global marketplace, is that there will be some of that consolidation will happen, but it's going to have an impact.
Well, and what about the Rogers Bell partnership as well in the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment? And that's a pretty big deal. Here's two obvious opponents in the industry coming together and saying, "Hey, we can make something work together," and they're powerhouses in of themselves, and they're just going to make it work. And it's how corporations, even though they could be foes in the retail end or what they're doing for the consumer or their corporate market, but they can also work together and create good opportunities.
I wonder if this new deal is going to strain the Leafs ownership relationship that they have. Yeah. The broadcasting deal that Rogers has arrived at with the NHL. I wonder if that's going to strain their shared ownership.
Or will it just create more opportunity because Rogers owns Sportsnet and
this it begs the question too. What happens to all those guys on TSN, the Gord Millers?
Yeah.
Where do they go?
I know. It's going to be interesting.
It's a little bit like the tech sector here. I mean, BlackBerry loses jobs, but there's lots of other opportunities. And some of the big stories in 2013 have been the growth of some of the other tech companies here. The explosive growth, a desire to learn. We've got MyoVision. You got Dave Caputo and the folks at Sandvine, OpenText. There's lots of good stories, and a lot of the talent that's here as a cluster. Even when some of that consolidation and at the macro level with the BlackBerries and at the big level, we still have a very vibrant business community locally here that are taking the talent that's here and growing and thriving. And we've got lots of startups, and we've got Thalmic Labs and others that are really, and I know there's a lot in Cambridge as well. So it is one of those things that 2013 will be known for some of those big sort of powerhouse companies coming together. Yeah. But it's also for those startups and those innovators, and that's what we're good at here in the region of Waterloo at a local level. And it's what we need to do as chambers, is to support our members in grooming that innovative and entrepreneurial spirit. And so in that respect, it's been a good year locally in a number of different fronts.
Now I want to change the conversation a little bit. What about maybe a successful but unsuccessful big story of 2013 when Target went across the country and came in and started converting their old Zeller stores? The consumer hasn't really been all over that, and I think to some degree a little bit disappointed at going in and not necessarily seeing what they would see in an American Target store.
And I think the one I've only been in once, but the one up at Conestoga Mall, we were talking about last week or the week before with someone from Conestoga Mall. It's just opening up, and so they're feeling like they're getting good response at this season. But I know many in other parts of the country are not.
What is your sense? Why is that happening?
Well, and I don't really know, because there's always that sentiment that you hear from people where they don't like these great big conglomerates, and Walmart, I know, has made a real sincere effort of trying to deal in the local marketplace. So, if you go into Walmarts in and around our area, you'll see Penman's products that are manufactured in Cambridge. You'll see, they try and buy Canadian and buy as local as they possibly can. So all of a sudden to hear this from the consumer with Target when, we're not getting the American products that they have in their American stores. Well, isn't that the intent? What do you want? You can't have it both ways. You either have it, them supporting local content, which I think, from my interpretation of what was happening with Target at the very beginning, I know they were talking with Grand River Foods to be a supplier for them, which is in Cambridge, for across Canada for some of their food products. So they were trying to buy locally and trying to bring the local flavor to their department store. But people are saying, no, we wanted the American stuff. And it's going to be interesting how they unfold and how they move forward.
And we've seen some of this before when you had the Lowe's and the Ronas competing with the Home Depots, and so that over time, I think what from my perspective, the ones that are successful, the ones that have a either local content in terms of product, but also have some local ownership or some local input to what the local marketplace wants. And sometimes that gets lost when you have corporate stores that are not sort of have an ownership. And that's where Canadian Tires, which have we've had a number of your, our franchisees, and they're successful because there's someone with a vested interest of saying, I'm going to invest in the community.
And they live in the community.
They live in the community, and so that'll be interesting to see how those again, that big story translates on the grassroots. But politics, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the political scene in 2013 that affect this region. When you have we've had provincial by-elections. There was we thought we might have an election in 2013 provincially. We're almost guaranteed to have one in 2014. But
had a new leader elected, a new premier brought in, Kathleen Wynne.
So I mean that's a change in the provincial government. We had a new Liberal leader. It wasn't Justin
Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau was elected federally, and that's changed the dynamic federally, which will have an impact potentially in the next election in 2015.
That is going to be really, really interesting to watch too, because I know that younger demographic is really picking up with him, but there's some faux pas that he's made along the way, and we'll see how they stick. And there's lots of complaining against the Conservative government, obviously, and Stephen Harper and his troop. But there's lots of complaining out there too about some of the comments that Justin Trudeau has made, and it seems that poor Mr. Mulcair has just kind of fallen off the train, and he's somewhere down the tracks.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, everyone says in and around Ottawa that performing in Ottawa, and he's by far and away the best performer in the House. He has been, and you watch Question Period. I'm not. It may not be my cup of tea in terms of ideology, but boy, is he good in the House of Commons. But it's not translating. But one of the things that is interesting is, I think the common theme that I see is surprises. Kathleen Wynne was a surprise winner in that leadership. I think Justin Trudeau was not necessarily a surprise, but the surprise is in the Alberta election, and I think was Alison Redford was not supposed to
the BC election,
but neither one of them were supposed to win.
Oh no,
and we've got elections. We've got elections.
In fact, she didn't win. She didn't win her own seat.
All right,
she had
gentlemen,
to go
hold
up
it. Hold it right there. We're going to change gears when we come back. It's the Year in Review, a special edition of Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy, and looking forward on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545, or 1-800-570-5715. It's not just what you know. It's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy. Glenn Pelletier with Ian McLean, President, CEO of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, and Greg Durocher, President and CEO of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. And looking ahead to 2014, a couple of things on the horizon that you guys have your eyes on.
Well, certainly, I think both Ian and I are gonna. We're looking forward to a very busy political year as well, and we've got Ian. Sometime this spring, we're going to have a provincial election because it's looking clearer and clearer that the next budget brought forward by the Wynne government is just not going to pass.
Well, it's not. I mean, I think even everyone signaled that there's no one that doesn't think there's going to be a provincial election after the next budget. So, I think that's a reality.
So she's had some terrible success, if that's what you want to call it, with the by-elections that have happened. Is there any chance she can pull this out?
Well, it's sort of what I was getting at is in BC. We had surprises in British Columbia and Alberta.
Yeah.
Ontario is different. Anything's possible. No one's particularly popular, but people, when the election comes, and it will, in my view, on the budget, people have to make a choice, and so surprises happen when there's not someone that's a clear favorite.
Okay, but clearly we had and she, and I think it was said very clearly. I can't remember who said it, but someone said, regardless of whether she was in the leadership role or not, she inherited all of the issues. So she inherited the gas plant issue. She inherited the Orange. She inherited e-health. She is inheriting this special blue ribbon committee that's come out and said, let's raise gas prices by 5 cents a liter or 10 cents a liter or whatever the case may be. What's your message? If you're that leader, what's your message going into this?
Well, I don't think it's bad luck. One thing I would say is she's not new. She was around that cabinet table for all those decisions. So I mean,
and pretty prominent.
But the reality is that people still have to make a choice. And so I don't think it's to me, if I was handicapping, I wouldn't put a nickel on any of them because I think you're taking a shot. What will be interesting and what we're going to do looking forward is saying we've already said, and this is part of our fair and open tendering rant of saying that's an important issue of making sure taxpayers are respected and we get value for money. So that's an issue that we're going to be taking forward. But the way we're going to do that is we're putting that forward in our all candidates meetings we're going to run in the 4 ridings. In the invitations that we're putting to all those leaders, we've already had Tim, and I think this is a good time for an
update. Tim Hudak, I think January 16th
or something. So he's coming, and he's agreed to come and do a full hour with us on the program. So we're going to poke and prod him and say, tell us what you actually mean. What are you going to do on energy prices? What are you going to do to make it life easier for business? So we want to put all those issues forward and say, looking forward, because people are not convinced by any of the parties right now, but it has a huge impact on business. At the end of the day, whoever gets elected has got deficits to deal with. They've got to make investments in infrastructure and other things, and make choices about the kind of business climate they want to have. And so we expect to have Horvath confirmed for another luncheon event and to come on our radio program. And hopefully we can have the premier do that as well.
By the way, do you guys know off the top of your head when the budget is supposed to be tabled?
It's sometime in March. Generally,
it's usually
third week or something.
Yeah. Now a lot of times they try and wait for the federal budget so they can see what's in there to finalize it. But that's a little. It's February, March and into early April sometimes.
I think though, Glenn, and I can probably speak on behalf of Ian as well on this, is you're going to probably see more interaction, more involvement, and we're going to be, the 2 chambers are going to be stepping to the plate probably more actively in this provincial election than any, because we've got this rant that we want to, we've got this fair and open tendering problem, we believe, in the province of Ontario, and it's critically important to us. So,
by the way, if Ms. Wynn's government does survive a budget vote, the next scheduled mandated election is October of 2015. That's actually set in stone. So we'll have to wait and see if she survives. There will definitely be an election in 2015.
But speaking of,
you're saying she won't survive.
But speaking of October doesn't matter. We're going to have a municipal election
right across the province of Ontario,
and that's regional council, that's local councils, that's school board trustees, that's the whole ball of wax. And this is, and this is maybe why voter turnout is generally lower, somewhere around 28 to 30%, which is terrible, because that's a level of government that impacts you every single day with every single thing you do. But I think it gets so confusing. There's so many people on the ballots. There's so many candidates running for different positions. We're starting to hear rumors right now, because the first day that you can be a nominated candidate for the fall election is the 1st of January or 2nd, whenever they open up. But I'm anticipating seeing some maybe new candidates lining up at the door of City Hall on the first day they open after January. I think there's some people going to get out of the gate quick.
This year we saw, very recently, in fact, earlier this month, we saw Karen Sheehan, city councillor, decide that she is not going to run for re-election in Waterloo. Now, you've dealt with Karen.
Yeah, no, I was on council with her in my second term. It was her first term. From 2006 to 2010. So, she's a pretty strong voice on council, but there will be some turnover. Just by her announcing she's not running, there'll be at least one new. My understanding is I wouldn't be surprised if you see 2 or 3, or at least 1, maybe 2 more that don't run again. I think there's lots of people talking about whether it's the regional council seats in Cambridge. There's people talking about that in Waterloo as well. I mean, you hear all that chatter, but regardless of the numbers of people that don't run and what kind of turn, it's really important. We've got some big issues locally. I mean, one of the issues in Waterloo, which is a business issue as far as I'm concerned, is saying, how do we deal with tax rates? They're talking about the municipal price index. That's something I introduced when I was on council and said, you know what, I don't think we should be promising people 0% tax increase, but what business needs and what ratepayers need and homeowners need is stability and saying we don't want to have these ups and downs. So regardless of whether you like that or not, we will be doing some of this in the fall of saying we want to put not just a survey, we want to have some of these all candidate sessions and say it's important for people to know what they're voting for, whether it's in your mayor in Waterloo or Cambridge or your regional councillors, because they're making huge decisions that impact your taxes and the services that you get.
I'll be interested to see how much further Cambridge Mayor Doug Craig and Regional Councillor Doug Craig pushes his anti-LRT agenda, quote unquote. He's made some headway with that. He's getting some attention. I'd like to see what he does in the new year if he continues to push that.
Well, I think
and that's not fair. I shouldn't say anti-LRT because, by his own admission, he's not anti-LRT.
No.
But he wants some
wrong timing.
He wants to delay, and defer some of the allocations for it. And he does question, whether we need, rail versus bus. But I'm going to keep an eye on him and see what he does.
But that's one of those issues that could be one of the hot button issues in the election, because it touches so many things.
Oh yeah.
The subsidy that goes into LRT, the cost of the capital infrastructure, but then how does it operate, and will taxpayers be having to subsidize that more heavily than they anticipate? So, but those things all have an impact on how many pools can you open up, how many rec facilities, how do your parks
I would probably disagree with you, Ian, a little bit on the we should never promise 0%. I would say that maybe I can agree with you on saying we should never promise it. But I don't think we should ever take off the ball on not trying to do it, because and regardless, I know I've been criticized over the years for my 10 years on council during those 10 years I moved the motion to reduce taxes by 1.5% the first year I got in, and then we had a 0.5% reduction as well, and then for the balance of the term on council we had 0% increase and paid off a $55 million debt that we had. So there is a way to do it, and maybe that way is not sustainable. But I don't think we should ever take our eye off the ball of trying to do that.
But that's my point. Is that in my view, in Waterloo's case, when I was there, it was a different circumstance. But that's the important part of having the conversation during an election, because it does have consequences.
It does. Yeah.
And you can make choices, but people need to be aware of what's going. What I think I certainly just don't want to see this time is there are big issues on the table. And sleepwalking to the next council and then wondering why decisions get made that you may not like if you're not willing to participate. So I'm actually saying to our members, get involved, understand who your ward councillor is, understand who's running for mayor, understand who's running for the regional chair, because these are the ones that, as you said, every day they're picking up your garbage.
Yep.
Every day you're turning on the tap. Every day you're flushing your toilet. Every day you're taking a kid to a park or want your roads plowed. That's all done by your municipal government. And the intersection in all of this is we got provincial election, and that has a huge impact on what municipalities can do.
Absolutely.
And so here's the third part that connects, as far as I'm concerned, labor arbitration, which we've talked about many times, which impacts municipal budgets. But fair and open tendering, there's a provincial issue which impacts every municipality.
Directly.
Yep,
absolutely.
So, the importance of that provincial election is going to be important, and it's not a partisan thing, but we need that issue fixed so that municipalities can get squeeze every ounce of value of every taxpayer dollar. And if you can ever get to 0% that's not going to harm your community, great. Most municipalities are not in that situation without having to cut services because they spend so much on their labor, and we need to have some control.
But I guess from my perspective, is the focus shouldn't always be on how do we get more money. The focus should always be on how do we save on what we're doing now.
Absolutely.
And I think governments, and I'm not just picking on municipal governments at all stages don't do enough of that.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to come back and look back on, from a more close to the chamber level, look back on 2014, some of your highlights. I know you had a lot of great accomplishments over the past year. This is Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.
Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. Creates a strong Waterloo region, and when businesses support each other, they support the community. Now back to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.
And joining us now from Water North Hydro as we continue to talk about the importance of Save on Energy is our guest, Jeff Quince. Welcome again, Jeff.
Well, thanks for coming back, Jeff. And over the last number of weeks, we talked about Small Business Week and some of the specific programs that you do at Save on Energy to help small and medium-sized enterprise. Then we talked about the business case, about why it would be important, and we talked about both the dollars and cents as well as the satisfaction of doing the right thing in terms of the energy and environment issues. But now let's talk about how we get started. How does a business get started with getting on with the suite of programs that Save on Energy offers?
Well, I mean, there's various ways to start, but I mean, if you're a business owner, I mean, the best way is to start looking around for ways. But you're not sure where to start. Well, maybe ask your employees. They probably are full of great ideas, and we find that when we walk through facilities, we stop at machines, we stop in different areas. These employees have great ideas of ways to save, and they've all kinds of ideas that you can start implementing. But then you're not sure what to do with those ideas, and that's where I'd say ask some other business owners, ask maybe some service providers you work with, but most importantly, bring us into the equation. Ask your local distribution company representatives to come in and walk through a process with you and explain where the opportunities are. We're here to do it. When it's all free assistance that we can provide to you. So we're happy to come in and meet with you and start doing some free assessments on your facility and start showing you opportunities out there and then take the next steps.
So let me drill down on that just a little bit. So, you yourself or John or Sarah, the gangs that you work with, if someone is just calling the phone and say, look, I'm not sure I want to actually have a site visit right now because I really want to kick the tires a little bit, you'd be able to say, hey, here are some of the other examples. I think when one of our previous shows you mentioned there's been over 5,000 projects in the region of Waterloo. So there's lots of experience to say, hey, here's a lighting issue, here's an HVAC, here's any number of different ways that people have benefited from the program. Is that the sort of thing that you can give them some examples of?
Certainly is. I mean, in small business lighting alone, there's over 5,000 projects in place. In our retrofit system, we're over 300 to 400 projects. That 300 to 400 projects turns into almost $4 million in incentives that have gone out in the community and driven over $10 million in economic benefit to the community through contracting work. But that's the we can give them the hard and fast facts about things, but really getting in front of them and showing them the difference. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the projects are an opportunity to engage staff, but they're an opportunity to improve everything. What happens is somebody says, I need a new light, so they put a new light in where the old light is, but they don't look at the opportunities it presents, where we could put in a new light that does a new job, because businesses change and technology changes from year after year. So this is an opportunity to really engage your staff and really improve the environment that they work in, and really help the bottom line at the end of the day. So it's a three-way win for customers. But I need to encourage them not to be afraid to get people involved and go out there and get connected with us, because we've got a big network of people that we can bring in.
And that's why Greg and I and the Cambridge Chamber and the Greater KW Chamber are pleased to have you as our title sponsor, because this is really important for not only the community and residential homeowners, but specifically for those small and medium-sized businesses. We strive every day to have those member reward programs to save our members money, and this is clearly one of those ones where it can make a serious dent in their bottom line or improve their bottom line. So in getting started, probably the best in order would be to go to the website, see what you have to offer, because it offers at saveonenergy.ca. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what's there? It shows you all the programs?
It shows you a suite of programs for businesses and the residences, and it kind of shows what kind of incentives are available out there for them.
Jeff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for appearing on the show once again. Jeff Quint was our guest from Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro. Always great to have Jeff on, and he'll be joining us next year as well. Great to have the association between us and Save on Energy. All right, looking back and ahead from your levels locally at your respective chambers. You guys had a lot going on this year.
Well, we had
too much in my estimation.
Well, I have
too much McLean. Too much McLean, I think.
Far too much having to see Greg in this radio studio. No, actually, we've really over the last 3 years really developed a very tight relationship, which I think is important and has been helpful to us, and I think more broadly the business community. But we're doing some major events. So we have this radio program, which is a great week every week to talk about how we work together. But we've had LeaderCast, we've had we're now partnering on the manufacturing summit. We've had a trade show for the LRT, so business knew what the opportunities are. We do
Business Expo,
which was a tremendous success.
And we're doing the the leaders,
the leaders series where we have Hudak, as we talked about.
Boy, it is getting to be a little bit too much McLean, I think here.
Well, you know what? This is important. I mean, we each have our own constituency. We represent our communities, but part of the strength of Chambers is working together and expanding and saying we're stronger together. So I think that last year was successful. The events that we've run together are getting bigger every year.
Yep.
We think they're getting better. We're seeing our members are liking the fact that we are doing these events together.
And really, the whole purpose of this is to bring value to those members that we have in our organizations. And when you collaborate or you can network in a room filled with 400 or 500 people, there's some real benefit that can happen out of that. And we see the Business Expo is just fantastic. Like there's,
I think it had to do with the on the street.
The on the street host, yes.
Because we did some video this time too, which was, and we had a special guest named Glenn Pelletier.
It's been getting some pretty big hits off of. I'm not sure why it's getting all the hits, but
it's the host. Anyways,
that's what happens when you wear a dress.
But yeah, it's exactly. Well, LeaderCast coming up. We've got, talk about very timely. Yeah. Desmond Tutu is going to be one of the speakers.
Laura Bush.
So there's some business leaders. John
and that
Stanley.
Is a fantastic program because, you and I have really, really busy schedules. There's no question about it. But, we spend the whole day there generally.
Absolutely.
Because the speakers are just phenomenal. The structure and the organization that LeaderCast puts together for us satellite sites is just, it's timed bang on. Everything is just perfect. It's a really, really good day.
It's those types of things where we can bring world-class events, world-class speakers that are talking about business issues, training your team, or expanding developing your team, developing your personal brand and leadership skills. You get world-class training for, I think we're charging $100, and actually cheaper if you do the advanced. All right, guys. Sales.
Quickly, LeaderCast, when is it? Because we're going to have a minute to go here.
It's in May.
It's in May.
All right,
May 10th, I think.
Minute to go. Any message you want to send out to the listenership as we head into a new year?
I think there's one really important message that Ian and I really want to convey, and we try to all the time. But this European Free Trade Agreement is going to be absolutely critical to the future economy of the Waterloo region because we need our SMEs to step to the plate and show some desirability to get engaged with that.
Final thoughts in 30 seconds, Ian.
Absolutely agree that that's the theme for this year, and that we're already starting to talk about how can we tie every event that we do together on our members seeing the value and the benefit of this potentially huge deal.
Okay. Guys, there goes an hour. We look forward to another edition of the show. We'll see you guys in the new year. You've been listening to Business on 570 News.